Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to my Instagram live broadcast. My name is Wray, and I'm head of school at Mulgrave. So first things first, as ever, I hope that you are all well and not only surviving in this time of pandemic, but are also finding ways to thrive as well as survive. So welcome to today's broadcast. You will remember this time last week that I was urging everybody to listen to our Premier John Horgan after my broadcast at 2 o'clock so that we could have more information about how schools were going to open and some of the details. And I don't know about you, but I came away from that media conference none the wiser, really, about how schools were going to open over the course of the next few weeks and months. I can't blame that entirely on the people in our government. It's very hard for them these days to try to steer a path which is cautious, but also beginning to open up our communities, our country, our economy, and so on. But at least in the next couple of days, after John Horgan spoke, we had a few more details and the different stages of education opening, which the BC government are planning. And that meant on Monday of this week, I was able to write to our community and give them a few details of what our current plans are. Unfortunately, we still do not have huge amounts of details about the circumstances under which schools should be opened for some grades this summer. So our plans have still not been firmed up. We are told that we'll get more details of our opening and the guidelines this Friday. So the plan is, I think, to reach out to our Mulgrave community next week, probably the middle of next week, and give more details about what the firm plans are for opening this summer. We'll probably be very much aligned to what we've currently planned, and that is that we'll be open for PK through grade 5 on a part-time basis. And then our grade 6 through grade 11 students will be returning on an occasional basis before the end of term, just to connect with everybody. But if there's any change, of course, I'll let you know immediately next week. This is an interesting time to be a decision maker in education. It's very hard to keep up to speed with what is happening. We have to follow guidance from the Ministry of Health, guidance from the Ministry of Education, guidance by WorkSafe BC, and a whole variety of other organizations. So it's challenging being in education at the moment and making the right kinds of decisions for our school. I'm frequently in contact with the other heads of school, people like the head of Collingwood, the head of Brockton here on the North Shore, and we're sharing ideas and hopefully having a reasonably common approach to the way that we deal with things. But being a decision maker just in a K through 12 school or PK through 12 school it isn't any more challenging than being the vice president of a university. I was listening to McGill University last night that have just cancelled all of their classes in favour of online classes this coming fall. So for the 9 students at Mulgrave who are going to McGill in September, they're faced with the prospect of a lot of uncertainty and dealing with online classes into the fall as well. So it is a difficult time to be a decision maker, I guess, in so many businesses, in government, but certainly here in education as well. I sometimes think I need the wisdom of Solomon. Solomon's an interesting character. It appears in the Quran, the Bible, the Torah, as someone who is very wise. And I sometimes wish I had more wisdom to try to steer or help steer our community through this next period. Our number one concern, of course, as always, is safety. And before we move forward, we are constantly referencing how can we make this safe? How can we reduce risk? How can we mitigate risk? And so, please be reassured that as we decide the path forward, that we are considering those top of mind. The other challenge here, of course, is that people have very different opinions. from people on one end of the spectrum who have utmost respect for, saying, look, our family needs to continue in complete lockdown for the time being, to other families who are very, very keen about beginning to reopen and re-engage their children in education. So, in addition to meeting guidelines from governments and other people, trying to listen to the opinions of everybody is pretty tough. But as you know, I hope that always we'll do our absolute best at Mulgrave to steer the right course forward. First question for today is, how are we preparing our children to be safe on their return? And I've chosen this location here today especially because this is 2G's classroom. And one of the things that Ms. Mitchell and the junior school leadership team and our facilities team have been working on is the critical issue of social distancing and physical distancing. So they're currently rearranging all the classrooms to make sure that we can accommodate probably a maximum of about 14 or 15 students in any one class, but absolutely making sure that we have the 6 feet distancing between each individual student and their individual workspace. But there are lots of things to consider. As you know, we are thinking about only having certain grades in school for some kind of part-time schooling. We're thinking about staggered drop-off and pick-up and all the complexities of that. We're thinking about hand washing and hygiene regimes. How does lunch work? How does recess work? We're very keen about, in PK through 5, in making sure that groups of students remain pretty isolated from other students. So many things will happen as a class with the class teacher and the associate teacher with very little exposure beyond that, because I think that sense of isolation and containment is pretty important. We're thinking about things, what happens with PE and music. Languages we think will pretty much have to continue to be online, whether you're in school or out of school. So it's very challenging to think about all the different aspects, but please be reassured, all of our time, pretty much all of our time, is focused on really making sure everything is as safe as possible. One of the big questions is masks, and I think we're probably going to be steering a course whereby we're saying that that masks are not a requirement, but masks are certainly not something that we're going to say you can't wear. So we're probably going to be leaving that much to individual teachers and families to think about masks. Masks are challenging, as you know. I as many of you know, in Hong Kong, I led my school through SARS, and when wearing a mask and trying to teach and communicate is quite challenging, as you can see now. And it's fine for the odd interaction, but if you're wearing a mask all day, it's hot and it's a bit claustrophobic, and it does make communication harder. The second question today, and I'm going to leave my mask on just for a few minutes, just for you to judge some of the issues that we might face. The second question today is, how is the construction going? And this came from one of our grade 4 students. So I can say that the construction, and I'm going to take this off now because it does feel hot and claustrophobic underneath it. The construction is going really well. It's been really fortunate in many senses that in some ways the school has been closed for construction. The construction crew have been able to use the playground, the junior school parking lot in a very easy way. We've had great weather. And of course, in BC, the construction industry hasn't been closed down pretty much at all. And so our construction crew have very much been able to get on with what they're doing. The huge excavation that was necessary on that eastern side of our site and the shoring has just about been completed. The foundation stones are being laid for the big new gymnasiums and the changing rooms. And everything is going well. We're on course for a 2021 June completion, so a year from now. And the most important thing, in my mind at least, because I have to control the budget, is that this project is also very much on budget. So I'm very excited to look forward to the end of construction and the opening of this magnificent new facility for our school. We're going to have an athletic centre that is world-class and something to be really proud of. And we're going to have additional performing arts facilities as part of that complex as well. So that's something really, really to look forward to. So that's probably the end of what I'd like to communicate today. Please look out for my communication next week. I had hoped that being May break, we all might get a bit of a break from what's happening and what we're currently doing. But for me, that's certainly unlikely as we begin to put in place detailed plans for coming back on the 1st of June. So I hope you have a good long weekend. I hope that you have a really good May break and are able to really get some quality time together as a family without screens. I think we all need a bit of a break from that if we possibly can. So do take care. It's great to connect with you all again. My next broadcast will not be next Wednesday, by the way. My next broadcast will be the week after, but I look forward to connecting you live at that point. Bye-bye, everybody.